So the word rape is a forced sexual intercourse, including vaginal, anal, or oral penetration. Penetration may be by body part or an object.
I
That
just want to remind everybody right now, I'm so glad we're getting into this, Choobie. I want to remind everyone this is a level 5 elephant, and ooh, I don't want to cry. And I know this is difficult to hear. Even the definition of it is difficult to hear, especially when you know people in your life that have had to survive this. So be forewarned. Okay.
Sexual assault is unwanted sexual contact that stops short of rape or attempted rape. This includes sexual touching and fondling. Please note this term is sometimes used interchangeably with the word rape. So, please be advised that the terms rape and sexual assault, sexual abuse can get confusing since some certain states often use different words to mean same thing or use the same words to describe different things. So not every state legally when it comes to the words, they don't take it the same way. Different laws are enforced to different situations. So unfortunately each state has their own thing. So that's why sometimes the rapist here only gets 6 months in Florida, but when they're in Texas, they get the death penalty.
Yeah.
Because
I
of the
think that's what I don't like in general. There's different laws I feel similarly about, but this one in particular, I don't think we can afford to have different laws in different states. This is the one topic that I really wish that there was a consensus to penalties, etc., when it came to rape and assault. How it could be a minimal offense in one state and taken so seriously in another, right? No, get like we don't want to be the lowest end of the highest end of the stakes, but there should definitely be a consensus on what you know what the penalty is, because in the end a lot of people just end up walking and not being held accountable for their actions.
I agree with you on that. When it comes to this, I think it should be a full statewide, I mean, nationwide law because it is ridiculous. Oh, and another thing that pisses me off about the laws, this goddamn statute of limitations, that it's on my.
Stupider shit does not have a statute of limitations, but this does. But let me tell you how there's no statute of limitation on the trauma that it leaves on the individuals who suffer sexual assault or rape.
Just thinking about the statute of limitations on Netflix that deals with rape and sexual assault, and I love that show. So, to those who don't know what the word of the phrase statute of limitation means, it means a statute prescribing a period of limitation for the bringing of certain kinds of legal actions, meaning certain situations, let's say like how when did the rape happen or whatever, that certain person, because there's a statute of limitations on it, they will not be able to take any legal actions against that person because they already can't do anything about it legally. So it's like it expired. What was the name?
Unbelievable.
Yes, that.
I have it on my queue. I knew what you were talking about. And I was like, if I see the name, I'll know what it is. It expires. It expires. Qué cosa, qué vaina más loca.
The fact, mind you, and there is so much evidence accumulated for this person, yet because of the statute of limitation that is on their favor, they get away with it. Do you guys know the Golden State Killer?
String of rapes and murders stretched back to the 70s. On Monday is converted ballroom in Sacramento. The former police officer admitted guilt. He's a former fucking police officer.
Thank you. Found him. Yep.
Killer
Okay.
was loose in California, terrorizing victims in the valley. 75 case finally reached denouement on Monday in the hearing. D'Angelo, 74, no longer agile young man who sneaked into women's homes. The hearing went on for hours after being arrested using novel DNA technique. Between the 70s and 80s, 13 counts of first degree murder that he committed across California. In front of victims and their family, Amy Holiday, Sacramento Deputy District Attorney, announced the plea agreement, which took the death penalty off the table in exchange for guilty pleas that resulted in 11 consecutive life sentences.
That's what he.
Well, I mean, that means he'll be in jail forever.
Oh yeah, even his afterlife, his reincarnation, his spirit, everything will be in jail forever. But that's my point. He couldn't get charged for everything because of the statute of limitation. But you know what they did? Certain evidence after a certain period of time, the courts they get rid of it. So this particular evidence, they kept it. Despite the statute of limitations, they kept the evidence, and this is literally what got him to actually be, given more sentences and whatever because of that. Because somebody decided to say, screw the statute of limitation, I'm gonna keep this, and that's what got him caught too, like got him evidence. So what I was gonna say is that the Golden State Killer got away with so much. Yes, he's gonna be in jail for 11 life sentences, but there are so many people out there that he hurt and traumatized, and he got away with. It's like they didn't get justice for their rape and their murders, because of
Yeah.
the statute of
I
limitation.
had to look because I know that our lovely state has some pretty stupid rules and a lot of things that don't apply. So I'm very curious. What is the statute of limitation for civil sexual abuse? Is it civil sexual abuse, um, such as rape or incest? In Florida, the filing of civil claims dealing with sexual abuse, such as rape or incest, must be commenced at any time within the following limitations. I think it just boggles my mind that there's a limitation to this. 7 years after the victim reaches the age of majority, which is 18 years old in the state of Florida. So your rape magically goes away because you're 18? I no entiendo. 4 years after the victim leaves the dependency of the abuser, or 4 years from the time of the discovery of both the injury and the causal relationship between the injury and the abuse, whichever date is later between these two, and with sexual battery involving a minor under 16 years old, there is no statute of limitation. The second point illustrates Florida's delayed discovery rule. Florida is one of the several states to have a delayed discovery rule, which effectively indefinitely extends the statute of limitations. Oh, okay. The legislature took into account the nature of this abuse and when it occurs at such an age and the possibility of repressed memories of the events. Thus, when the person discovers that they were sexually abused in the past, the statute of limitation will only then begin to run, and that person will have 4 years from that date to file their lawsuit.
What gets to me is that, okay, I hear these laws, but when the person does come forward with such, information and what happened, now they are accused, like, of falsely giving information, or like and they don't even see them as the
But why it
victim.
took them so long to come forward?
Right.
Then the victim becomes the accused. That's so messed up.
Right, like they don't even believe them.
I think my biggest issue is okay, yes, because there's situations where like having abuse, you don't remember it because our brains are crazy things, people. And again, we remind you, not therapists. But this is a well-known thing. There's a lot of repressed memories and things that we all have Like given a particular trigger, a particular instance, in a flash, it all comes back to us. In the worst of moments, sometimes. Um, that being said, this whole you have now 4 years, again, a limitation, right? If you don't act, you're still screwed. I just feel like it's really unfair because there's still so much fear and so much things to sift through for that person, especially if it's a memory that has come to them. Yeah, you need to act on it right away. But like, I don't, no, I don't know how to explain this in words. I'm just not okay with it. I'm not okay with somebody telling you there's a time for somebody who harmed you emotionally, physically, spiritually, every mother loving way possible that you can hurt someone. There's a statute of limitations on when you can get it handled. Have them be held accountable for their inhuman actions. Doesn't sit right with me. And I may not have the right words to express why. It just ain't right. It's just not right.
And this is why hashtags, of movements like the Me Too movement, and why I didn't report it, um, have come to life, to fruition, because some people, it's hard to talk about it, but seeing these movements that are standing up for people that can't speak about it, or that their statute of limitations were, in place because obviously they were too scared to talk about it.
It's
Hard.
not it's not easy to talk about. It's not easy to come forward about it. And again, there's a situational things, and it doesn't say anything about the person. It's a lot about how we're raised and the pressures that society puts on us sometimes, the expectations that are put on us when it comes to maintaining face in the workplace or maintaining face in our family if it's rape because of a family member or friend did it, right? So one never knows why the conversation coming up, right, is difficult, but it's fucking difficult. And so when the person is finally reaching out for the help to know that it's conditional for something that um, traumatizing, that tragic, to know that there's a condition behind it that in some way covers the ass of the abuser is really upsetting because then we create this cycle of people not coming forward about their experience with abuse or harassment or rape because we've pretty much for a very long time, and I acknowledge those have who have been held accountable for their actions, but many times we have accepted that rapists will walk free,
It's a what?
that a rapist can walk free,
Oh, yes. Has
that a pedophile will walk free, right? And it I cannot I cannot even begin. And I'm not even going to get into the politics of it. I'm not going to get into the laws of it. I'm not going to get into discussing like my feelings about the abuser themselves because all I can think about really is I cannot imagine what it feels like to be the abused, the the person who survived it, and worse, to be the family of the ones that didn't survive it. And those lines that are crossed about the athletes, right? The arguments of consent when an athlete crosses a line, or when a celebrity crosses a line and it and rapes or sexually abuses a fan or whatnot, right? The pedestal that we have them all on that tends to get them off of their charges, or that it's their word as a celebrity and as a person of status versus the person who was abused. That's really frustrating.
But you know what gets on my nerves? Ay, pero he was such a nice person. Or they, she, whatever. They were a nice person. What do you mean? What? No, never. They could never do that. And it gets on my nerves when you think that because someone is nice, that equates for them to not do these heinous crimes that they're doing. Like, what? That doesn't mean that you're nice. It just exempts you for getting your to pay for what you did. And like you just said, like all these people, these famous people, and they get away with so much because of who they are.
It's still related because a lot of what we understand about, like we said, a lot of the emphasis is put on sexual consent,
Yeah.
right? And a lot of what we understand consent to be and the allowances we make when it is not met comes from this idea of excusing certain actions away
Right.
before it gets to certain points. And I don't want to point fingers at a particular gender. I don't want to do that because the fact is rape happens to men, women, trans,
And
non-binary. It
everyone.
happens. It happens to people. But the cases that come out the most are those of men. And I absolutely do know that it's I not know. I don't know this, but I've everything I've read, everything I've ever learned points to this being a fact. That is the things that we have taught them that are okay because they are men. It's in their nature, it's in their thing to not have to ask for these consents. To see that a lot of that has changed, right? There's efforts in showing both young men and young women and trans men and trans women and non-binary individuals that from a young age that you don't it has nothing to do with the way you dress. It has nothing to do with what you owe somebody because they paid for your dinner, right? It has nothing to do with those things. It's not acceptable, period. Right? And I like that there's also been an emphasis on teaching our children, our teaching people, because sometimes people learn things as adults, right? They thought something was okay and they're like, no, it's not okay before they act all stupid, right? That we've taught the person who maybe had the mentality or has been told for many a time that, boys will be boys or whatever the case may be. I'm glad that that rhetoric has changed to be nothing is owed to you. Ask for it. If you're taking someone on a date, it's because you want to get to know them, you want to share time with them. And if you're offering to do the paying or whatever the case may be, nothing is owed to you in return except for a good time of like conversation. And if somewhere in the middle of that it is not a good time and that other person isn't feeling it, then that's the end of it, even if you were feeling it. You know what I mean? The idea that something is owed in return, the whole idea of like not leaving someone with blue balls.
Right.
I don't know you shit. You know what I mean? And if the way that someone is coming on to you is making you uncomfortable, either you say something about it and they change it, and then that makes it, oh, okay, they listen, or you extract yourself from the situation. You're allowed to do that. Again, it's reversible. But sometimes it's difficult to do that. I remember being on a date and not really feeling that I could get away from it and not feeling that I could say I'm not comfortable. And it wasn't because I wanted to get the free meal and get away with it or anything like that, because that just ain't me. I didn't feel safe enough to even extract myself from the situation in a public place. Right? And these are things that we don't consider. Finally, when I got in my car, never talked to that individual again. Like, you know what I mean? I told them I
Yeah.
wasn't feeling it that day, and I don't want to continue, right? Seeing each other. I was in the safety of my own home. I was far away. I felt good. But in that particular situation, I was not safe, and even though there was many people there, I did not feel that I had an escape. So, but I definitely am appreciative that the conversations now are no one owes anyone anything sexually, right? Or even a kiss. Any sort of physical affection is not a required thing just because of anything else.
But that's the thing that we have that in our minds that I, but they were so nice, and
You excuse it
yeah,
away.
but you did something that you didn't like, that they did something to you that you didn't like, and you did excuse it away because you're like, but he's so nice, or like they're so nice, and we keep doing that. It's
Yeah.
like a
We
cycle.
justify things. And it's not because we want to be naive or we want to be blind to things. We also don't want to believe that people are capable of those kinds of discomforts. Right? No tiene que cruzar una gran línea. It doesn't have to cross a huge line to the point of rape for it to not be something that you want to believe about someone that you've known to be a certain type of way. You don't want to kill that image of them. Um, and there's
Right.
certain situations where absolutely, like I think a particular situation does not create that human being, but it definitely didn't do it. Like you don't have to associate with them in the same way.
Right.
Because again, if this is where the emphasis is, the fact that there's emphasis on it has not changed that there's that statutes of limitations still exist. Right?
Right.
I'm glad that the rhetoric has changed of what we're teaching our kids about what's acceptable and what not. But the fact is there's still a stigma about being a rape victim. I
Right.
apologize. That is a terrible thing.
Survivor.
A survivor. Because I think it's really unfair. And because I know so many survivors of sexual abuse and rape, they're absolutely survivors.
Yeah, because you're the one living with that, and the fact that you see your rapist just
Right. There's a thing about being the rapey and about the the language,
yeah,
the justification and the excuse. And especially when it happens within a family dynamic, right? When the abuser is in the family or a family friend, the excusing and the justification and the cover up becomes worse. And if it's happening to you as a child, right? Or if it's happening to you as a teen or even as an adult, your family, it's supposed to be your protector, your safe zone. And they're the ones, leaving you in this bubble of abuse.
and also in the family dynamic, there are a lot of times that when you do speak about it, they don't believe you.
Right.
Right? Like they don't believe that that could possibly happen. And it's like, why? I'm telling you it happened, and that's not good enough reason for you to believe me?
Yeah.
You think I made it up? I mean,
Yep.
yeah, there's a certain percentage that people have made it up. Unfortunately,
Yeah, but
that
how can you tell unless you go into it? But some people, con tal de no creerlo or not having their happy bubble burst,
yeah.
they don't even go into the investigate. Like, believe your kids when they tell you shit. It creates a lot of adults with a lot of unnecessary pain, and ways of relating to a particular gender,
Yeah.
right?
But it's so uncomfortable to hear that fucking statute of limitations is a fucking thing.
Yeah, yeah. It shouldn't be.
And it pisses me to no end.
My main thing with tying all of this to the consent is that really like recognizing that nothing is owed to anyone to excuse um ignoring what the person is saying, right? Um, so in the world of BDSM, consent is a big thing. And you would assume not, the dom, the sub. But nothing happens in those forums without there being not just consent from the submissive party and the dominant party, but mutual consent, right? Um, so in something that there's also a stigma about, like the world of BDSM and kink, that everyone so openly has an opinion about, if there is that level of consent, why do we assume that it needs to be different in the everyday sexual encounter? And even for something as simple as a kiss, right? And the reason that those things are adopted, this language of consent and these boundaries, right, and kind of rules to a point, is because you know that it could potentially literally physically harm someone. It could be emotionally triggering, whatever the case may be. That is still the same. The same still applies to, like, the first time you go on a date and you go to kiss somebody. It's difficult. It's uncomfortable to formulate the "no, I kiss you," or I would really like to kiss you. You still gotta wait for the response from the other person.
Right.
A lot of people can say that it takes away from the magic of just leaning in, but if you're also leaning in, that means you're consenting to it.
The nonverbal cues are also consent, or not consenting. Like when you push someone away, or when you bring them closer, when you both lean into kiss, like you said, that is nonverbal. Or they're
like, if you went in for the surprise, don't pull back in.
Right? Definitely do not do that.
If
And
they
if they
lean
say
into
no,
it, okay.
right.
When you hear about other when it comes to sexual engagement, other practices from other people, and you see how consent is top priority, and how in the quote unquote mainstream consent is an afterthought, that leaves room for concern, doesn't it?
Yes, because if something like the what is it called? The
BDSM.
BDC, that world, I
Other
can't,
letters.
20 letters, other letters. If they could have all those, rules, or mutual consent, why can't why can't you do that in your everyday? It is mind-boggling to me that you can be respected in everyday life. You cannot have just manners, just ask. People just think that they could just take. That's not how it works. So let's go back to the consenting on the workplace.
I think we rounded it out, right, with consent when it comes to sexually. That's what I was gonna say. Um, I find it really sweet. It can be very romantic and very sexy as a turn on to have somebody ask, right? Or to approach you in a way that is um with those nonverbal cues of, without attacking, you know what I mean? Of it still being kind of like the question of, is it okay? Right? Leaning in and kind of pausing. Right? I
Like,
find it really sexy.
it's like, is that okay? I
Yeah.
mean, and even for a hug too. Like when you want to,
There's people that don't like hugging.
I don't like hugging. Don't touch me. I don't, but I appreciate the ones that know this about me and they ask me, would it be okay for me to receive a hug from you today? Yeah, sure. Why not? But if they come and hug me out of nowhere, touch me out of nowhere, it's like I known you for my entire life, but I know.
And even when you're in a relationship with someone, there's nothing anywhere that says that you have to kiss them
At
what
any time, whatever you
at any
want.
time. Like obviously you're in a relationship, you're gonna kiss or whatever. But if there's a moment where you're like, I want to kiss you right now.
And that doesn't mean that it's wrong. It just means that let them have their space. You have
Yeah,
to
there's
respect
there's
that.
nowhere that it says you have to kiss. Now you're my partner, you have to kiss me, you have to hug me, we have to have sex like this, or we're gonna and there's consent within sexual acts, obviously. But if you're already in a sexual relationship with someone and there's something that you want to try, you don't just like surprise, you talk to the person.
But I totally agree with you. Even when you're in relationships with someone, even sitting next to them doesn't mean that you automatically get the free pass to just touch their thighs or hug them because you are in that relationship.
Right.
Just like marriage, they do not consider be, the woman doesn't want to have sex, or the part one of the parties doesn't want to have sex, but they're being forced to. That is called rape. But the laws do not consider that rape. Oh, but you're married. Yeah, but I didn't want to.
The
And you
contract was to share a life together, not that I have to do something that I don't want to do.
and and when I learned that, I was like, that needs to change.
Yeah. I mean, I'm so glad you brought that up because that's how automatically what comes to my head, that rape within a marriage automatically is considered consensual. Yes, they are set agreements and kind of, for lack of a better word, expectations for having, a sexual relationship or whatever. But nothing of that is forced. And if your partner is not there, number one, you're causing a trauma in your own relationship with this person. Number two, you're not getting the best of your partner. They're not invested in that moment, right? And of course, this can go on and take different incarnations about what consent looks like. No one's saying that it's not going to bother the other party, that you won't have your feelings about it, but it doesn't mean it's an always thing. The contract is to have, when in marriages and in relationships, I feel like the contract is to be communicative. You know, you have your understanding of your agreements, but everything can always change. And when it comes to things like sex or affection, a check in is fine.
Yeah.
You're not rejecting your partner completely, right? Uh, but you're in all your right to say, right now, I'm not good.
And most people, I feel like they tend to forget that you still have your right as a person in the relationship to say no.
You still belong to you.
Exactly. But they forget that, and again, like you said, because they're in the marriage, they think that they owe something to the
Yeah.
other person.
And there's that fear of like, if I don't do it, it's gonna, what a strain on a marriage, on any kind of romantic relationship, to not know that you can't have a moment of, and that your partner will understand and respect, right? That their feeling will overshadow your need. That's not cool.
And they need to understand that if you good communication skills, obviously, like you said, communicate with the other person and check in, like you said, hey, this is what's going on. How are you feeling? What's going on? This is where I'm at.
Hmm.
If you're lacking anything, whatever. But communication is important too, as we all know. And by doing so, letting them know what you do like, what you don't like being done, what upset you about certain actions that were taken without your permission. I just feel like they should talk. That's it. Communication.
Yeah.
About everything and all.
I don't know if there's a real smooth transition to out of this very heavy aspect of the consent conversation into workplace, but I guess there is because, sexual harassment in the workplace and then into the contractual aspects of actual work consent. Have you ever had an experience of sexual harassment in the workplace?
I cannot recall.
In retrospect, I can acknowledge when that certain things that I went through were absolutely um uh oh my god, a breach of my consent. But at the time I didn't put too much stock in it, right? And I
Mhm.
don't feel traumatized by it, but there's other moments that absolutely I was like, "Excuse you." Right? Because I think I discussed this with you before. When you're a woman, period. But in my experience, in being a curvier woman, I there's a unfortunate perception that we all have low self-esteem and will allow certain things that another woman might not, which could very well be true. But in my case, regardless of my esteem, I don't appreciate being groped at like I'm your business because I'm not your business or your
Right.
property. Uh, and I anybody who knows me knows I like wearing low cut shirts. I show a lot of cleavage. It's because they gotta breathe, not just because I like showing my titties. Okay, it's suffocating sometimes. Like this right now, he's suffocating to me. Um, so the fact that something like that gets made about anybody but myself, or automatically fits in someone's brain to give them like permission to stare down my shirt or up my dress or something like that is really upsetting. That's just been my experience. Nothing that I haven't been able to handle, but I would imagine that like that can be very upsetting and off-putting to someone in that situation. You go to their work. You don't go there to be touched,
But that's the thing, you shouldn't be having to go through this in the first place, period. No one should.
right? And like, oh, you look so nice. They love your hair. That kind of thing. Some people they consider that like coming on too strong in the workplace. Like it's unnecessary to give a compliment like that. Those things I kind of feel like those are like lines that I feel are a little iffy because it could
Hmm.
just be someone being nice, but it's still like, are you okay with the compliment? But sometimes you just see someone like, I love the suit.
Right.
Like I've said that to people. Like, look at you looking snazzy. I love the suit. It's not me coming on to the person. I genuinely just like you look good in a suit. I know you. I see you every day, and you're wearing jeans and a shirt. Look at you, snazzy pants. You know.
Right.
But now we've come to a time that it's like really, if you can't even you, am I offending you? Do you feel accosted by my comment? It's a tough one.
You just reminded me of this place I used to work at, which I will not name. And one of the people there, he will make the most disgusting comments towards women. And I would just stare at him and I'm like, don't you have a daughter? Do you want other people to talk
Talk
to
to
you
you.
like that? To your daughter like that? Do you like that? I had to tell him to stop because that pissed me off. I'm like, do you like that? Do you see how you're behaving towards other women, and you have a wife and you have a mother and you have a daughter? How would you feel if she will come to you be like, "Oh, dad, this happened to me." Doesn't that put a different perspective in your freaking brain that, oh wait, I shouldn't behave this way? Sometimes it doesn't. It doesn't bring no perspective at all, and yet they sit there. and do that.
And just the idea of being subject to conversations like that, commentary like that. But I wasn't talking about you. It doesn't matter. I do not give you consent to speak like that around me. Like, esa manera despectiva de hablar, right? Ugly ways of speaking or referring to women, like degrading them sexually. I feel like there's a level of consent in the conversation. Like, if you're in an enclosed room, there's a level of consent from the other people in the room of what they have to hear or not. You want to be a sexist pig, an ageist pig, a racist pig, and expect me not to say something in return? The same way that you have your right to have that, or you're fighting for your right to speak and think that way, I got my right to call you out. If you don't want to hear it, don't talk to me about it.
It pisses me off that you could disrespect someone like that and yet go home to your wife con esa boca sucia and still talk to her. And obviously we don't know behind closed doors if he's the same way towards them, but that's not the point. The point is just, how can you live with yourself?
But that's a big double standard that they would treat particular women in a certain way and not others. That's not cool either.
And I know you guys are gonna say, "Oh, but why when women do it to men?" And I get that. I also get that because women do be like, salivating over men when they're passing by and giving them compliments too. I
Yeah.
get that, but
It's like there's the situation. For example, just yesterday, like I was talking to a friend and there's pictures of a cutie pie. I get cutie. What a cute hello. That conversation with your friend, there is that weird double standard of like, where does that line get drawn? I'm not saying I'm exempt from saying someone is like really hot or anything like that. But it's not like I'm gonna go up to the dude and be like, "Oye, papi, ¿cómo tú estás? Come here. Let me have at it."
right.
No. I think that's where that line is drawn.
And that's the difference. Like, yeah, I've given compliments to people, be like, wow, pero you're not being harassing them or being a pig about it.
I feel like there's so many lines in this particular thing, but it gets resolved with something as simple as a conversation and the understanding of of boundaries and consent.
Exactly.
Harassment in the workplace too. The workplace is not just consent of what can be said to you or should or shouldn't be done to you, right? Touching wise, etc. Is also consent to use your work, consent to use one's face. Like, I'm a model, I'm an actor, I'm a singer. I don't always consent to my face being used for certain projects. That's my prerogative. You are a photographer, right? There's
Yeah,
consent for your work being used and acknowledgement for it being used, right? I did not consent for my photograph to be used and not get credit for it.
exactly.
What we come to agreement, and we discussed this earlier. Read your damn contracts.
Reading is essential. You see?
Reading is essential. In general, I've known of particular situations where somebody signs a contract, it doesn't go there necessarily their way in the future, and they have a hissy fit about it. You should have read your contract. You are your own business when you're an artist, so it behooves you. And if you don't know what the hell you're reading, you're in all your right to be like, I need to take this to someone before I sign it. For me, my experience with having boo-boos with contracts luckily has not been in the acting or singing forum. It's been in modeling. Not, and I'm sure you see that a lot as a photographer or
Yeah.
hear the horror stories. Um, this person, aside from being a very talented photographer, they were my friend. And to be clear, it's not Choobie, not Choobie. Um, they're my friend, and they were giving me a good deal on headshots and modeling pictures for my portfolio. And I was given a contract, and I made the error of skimming, right? And I didn't know, and I wanted to be in charge of myself and my work. And I now know to pay attention to words like in perpetuity and without without having with what's the word without consent, because I probably legit there. And I signed this contract thinking that it was just going to be used for the purposes of this person's website, to move along. Like, this is the kind of work I do, which I was totally okay with. Come to find out, um, they were making money off of my face and my body, because it wasn't just my face. It was like there were pics. Not that I was doing anything naughty, but it's my body, and there were some sexy poses or whatever the case. And I was a freaking poster, and I did not know that this was happening. There was no exchange. So what I basically gave away was my consent of my image being used, and I gave away for someone else to benefit from it. There was no like, okay, you get 20%, I get 80%, whatever the case. It was just I signed away my face and my body. He was banking on these posters, these images. And then, the second layer of the discomfort is because I didn't give that consent and I'm a poster. I'm a poster? Whose house am I hanging in? And what is this image being used for? You, you know?
Yeah.
So read your damn contracts. It's important. Don't give away your ability to make decisions, because that happens in law firms and things like that, where a paralegal or a person in the clerical atmosphere will give consent for the organization to make choices for them.
And this is why, as a photographer, I had a contract at the beginning of my career, because I was like, this is what the contract is for. I'm not going to use your images for sales or anything of that nature. It's literally just to promote you as a model and promote my work. Simple as that. Do you agree? They signed the contract. There we go. Now, and you know this, if I want to use your photo other than posting it on, the interwebs, I will ask you.
I've never not received a request from you. Um, may I use? May I do? I've always, yeah.
Because I feel that it's important. I wouldn't want that being done to me. The only thing I always tell the model is just give me credit, put my name somewhere,
Yep.
because that's important. We're trying to help each other out. But if you don't do that, and I always ask, hey, can you please tag me, because you didn't tag me on the photo. It's just common courtesy to do, let everybody know who the photographer is. You like the image so much, you're using it, but you didn't let me know that you were gonna use it for something else. Me as a photographer, yes, I appreciate that, love it, but you didn't ask me. What if I didn't want my photo to be in a website that I don't approve of?
Right.
You didn't, and if you want your image, I will sell it to you, and you have your full rights to that image, and now you can use it whatever you want without me being attached to it.
Remember, a friend of mine, they had a deal, and it's crazy because this was a situation that went through a university setting. The university set it up so that this photographer that was an alum would give the theater department a good deal on headshot packages. And this photographer gave those students who are eager, who don't really know a contract, um, where they signed off that their image could be used for other things. You don't know what your image is being used for. Years later, one of my friends that was that one of those students finds their image. It is one of the it was an unflattering image. It was used for like some sort of like double chin exercise situation. Not cool, right? I mean, they're gonna need a picture for whoever's willing to, who gave the consent to, amen. But this person did not see that, and then other people found it or saw it, and they suffered a humiliation and a hit to their self-esteem. Um, so it's important, especially if you're somebody who is uh, an artist and your face is going to be out there. And even if you're not, when you're producing something, if you're um, a, a writer, a lawyer, having the consent of your words being used, your face being used, your body being used, your thoughts, your inventions, there's consent for all of that. And it's because you don't want your name attached to something that you don't necessarily believe in. For example, us, we're starting to get into like the sector of having to choose sponsors or partner with certain things. We're very selective of that because we know what we stand for. I
Right.
don't know who we would want to represent and partner with for those kinds of things. And you can't just like, yeah, sure, I'll promote your this medicine, and it turns out that it gives people like seizures. Hello.
Right.
But the hosts of No Filters, No Fear said it was great and that they took it and didn't do anything. Well, now we're screwed. Ain't
Right. That could get into a legal battle there, and we don't want that.
nobody trying to have no legal problems. No. But not
Mm.
just that. Thereafter, the people that are having seizures and having health issues, how crappy do we feel?
Oh, it's
But
even
all of
worse.
that is attached to not just, making good decisions, but we're consenting for that company to say, hey, no filters, no fears has backed us and whatever. And it's not just a business perspective of it, it's a self. It takes away
Right.
from our ethical values on certain things. And the same applies to all of you. Think twice about what you lend your name to, your thoughts to, your face to, because it could be used for something you don't want. Do you ever see that episode of Friends where Joey's face gets used for an STD advertisement?
I don't remember the episode, but I've seen it, but I don't remember it.
And all of a sudden he was the gonorrhea guy or chlamydia or something like that. It's all about raising awareness for it, and it's clear that you're raising awareness for it. I mean, but he wasn't doing it for that reason. He was just modeling, and they used his face.
Right. Without his permission.
I have a friend who did something similar, but she was aware of what it was being used for, and it was for breast cancer. And she was very proud of that. Great.
To me, that's why, I mean, I had asked a couple of people, oh, can I use your photo? I have instances where they're, no, I don't want, even though I love the image, they didn't want that photo of theirs on the interwebs, and I was like, okay, I won't use it. So I respected their wishes, and I didn't use that picture. I wasn't hurt about it. I wasn't like, oh, but it's my photo. I'm the photographer. No, I asked you for a reason. If I could use it, you said no, that's fine. I also had an instance where it was a maternity photo shoot. I asked, I told them that once the photos are edited and whatever, I was gonna upload them. Then they decided, yes, they agreed to it, and then all of a sudden, yes, consent got taken away, and they're like, take them down. Fine, but you did agree for it at the beginning, and this is me in retrospect now thinking that I should have been like, okay, fine, that's fine, because you're right, consent is reversible. So yeah, but at that moment, I was like, no, you agreed to it. Now you made me go through all this trouble to take them down because you said no, like you don't want them up. At the same time, is I feel like there was a miscommunication,
Right.
but
Back and forth.
I understood and I took them down. You know, So I had those instances in my profession that, you know, it happens.
Yeah, even more upset if I were you, if you do take them down and you respect that their consent was um redacted, you know. I would have been more upset if they, on top of that, they make it seem like you did it without their consent from the beginning, when no, you did give it and then you change your mind, and I'm respecting it and taking it down. Because there's people that do that too. Give it permission to, like, to feed their victimness of, like, I didn't want to. Not that this person did that.
No, no. But what's worse is that they still ended up using my photos without you giving me my credit or even posting anything.
Pardon?
So, mhm.
Oh, hell to the no.
And then I messaged them a whole book. And mind you, I was a friend, and I decided to do this because it was your first um baby, and I decided to give you my services for free to get you a very beautiful, mind you, the photo shoot was beautiful.
Yeah.
And you ended up getting the photos for free and losing me as a friend slash photographer, and still ended up using my content without
Not
my permission.
cool.
And then you wanted to become friends with me later on. How can we work through that friendship if you did something that, this is my livelihood, this is my work, and you took your consent from me, and then there was consent given and taken, and now you think that it's cool for me to be okay with you
Right.
using my work?
You said it right there. I think when it comes to work like yours, photography or anything in any a lot of things in the arts actually, it is mutual consent, right? It doesn't just serve the one party. And yes, it's my face and my thing, and I can or cannot give you consent if that's what we've agreed upon. But I can't just take it upon myself to make a choice for you to use your work or the work that of yours that I like if you weren't like, yes, go ahead.
I have these sets of photos in my hard drive that I can't use because, one, I'm not gonna use that. It has already bad vibes in it.
That
Two, yeah, very bad. And two, I worked through that I'm over that situation, but it was just so messed up though
oh,
to see
absolutely.
my work. I still see the pictures posted with no name. And that is upsetting because I work hard to get where I am. But you decided to not even ask for my permission to use them anyway.
Yeah.
And it creates a problem.
I mean, what happens with not having those conversations and consent? You're putting unnecessary stress and strife and the sense of betrayal and um violation into relationships that's unnecessary. Could have just been a conversation. And moreover, when people just assume, people have this discord, right, in their communication or lack thereof when it comes to consent over something, and you place this unnecessary strife in the relationship, whether it's a work relationship, romantic, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Obviously, there's room for you to come back from it, for forgiveness and for a better understanding so that it doesn't happen again. But to make an assumption that because you've had the conversation, right, you can now like skirt around it or do it again and not ask for the person's consent, like it's always going to be the conversation that
Right.
doesn't go away. And as tedious as it may sound and annoying, it's necessary because it prevents both parties from getting hurt. Hurt
Right.
can happen a lot of ways. I have felt like there was one time that I made a comment about something else. Let's say I made a comment about oranges. Uh, positive about oranges, and they took that comment and placed it as a positive comment about something negative. Let's say pollution. I'm talking nice about oranges, and they used the comment as a positive for their own benefit about
Mhm.
pollution. Now I look like a douche.
Right.
The person who doesn't know me, that doesn't know that I'm not about pollution and I'm about trying to help the planet, even though my footprint sucks right now, but I'm trying to make it better, um, will know not to believe that. But other people that I may potentially have business ventures with, relationships with, if they feel strongly about that one fact, their perception of me is already tainted by something that is not even true.
Exactly.
I mean, obviously, it's still pretty heavy, the idea of consent when it comes to contracts, when it comes to, right? Like if you're going to go give a presentation and a coworker's behalf to represent them in a way with of integrity and dignity, not, you know, quítate tú para ponerme yo.
Right.
I know a lot of people disagree with that because I mean, a lot of my friends have an issue with me of like, why did you send so and so that audition? It could have totally been yours. If it would have been solely for me, I would have gotten it.
Right.
Big believer in lo que está para ti, nadie te lo quita.
Me too. I believe in that too.
That sometimes, I think it's easier for me to assimilate that in a work environment. That sometimes it costs us to let that go in relationships. Understandable. But when it comes to like work, why am I going to detract from my ethical, moral value by tearing down somebody else, taking away an opportunity from them? I never understood that of like, a theater company closes and somebody has a damn party over it. I never understood that because there's room for all of us.
And people tend to forget that.
I'm going to mention a musical.
What? You're gonna mention what?
A musical.
Okay.
Um, Hamilton, the musical, which is a very big thing right now. It's still on Disney. You should totally go watch it.
I
Um,
don't like Hamilton, but thank you.
what?
I don't like Lynn. I don't like him. I have a personal thing. Didn't want to tell you, but I don't like the play. I don't like him. I don't. Sorry.
That's fine. You don't have to like it. I love it.
And that's totally fine.
But at the end of it, Aaron Burr, the guy who shoots Alexander Hamilton, has this realization is like, why did I let all of this get the best of me and make me act so shady and so dual, right? Whether because in his mind he was not being a hypocrite, he was not showing any sort of duality. He was just testing out the waters, right?
Mhm.
But when he finally realized and was honest with himself, he's like, there was room for both of us because we were doing different things. And the only one who caused this strife for themselves was me. I'm the only one to blame for now having a murder on my hands and losing my political reputation. Can't blame anybody else but me.
Sometimes they miss the bigger picture on that. Like for us in our work, like I can't compare myself to other photographer because my work is different, and I know there's room for me somewhere out there that people like my work and the way that I shoot. But most people tend to forget that, and
There's a lot to be said for the personality that commands a room, right?
Mhm.
That is powerful, that is a leading energy. That is impressive, right? But to impose it above all else and above all sentiment of anyone else in your environment, that's not so cute because then you're not, it becomes solely about you,
Right.
right? And that's where we start imposing our concept of consent because I want to do it because I think it's right. It's going to happen. but now you're imposing that on someone else. And in the workplace, there's no real room for that, especially if you really are a leader and you're in a position of authority.
Right.
Taking consent away or making those executive decisions does not a good leader make or a strong leader make. And
Definitely not.
that reflected in many aspects of our society. The best thing I ever saw was this image, and I think I posted it a while ago on my Instagram. This image of a pack of wolves,
Mm-hmm.
and then there's a way that they form their traveling pack, and the leader, the the weaker ones, the older ones, are in the middle, and they're stronger
Oh
in the back,
yes.
stronger
Mm-hmm.
in the front,
And
right?
the leader at the.
And the leader's all the way in the back watching everybody. They're not in the front saying, "Follow me." Da, 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 da. And so they're in the back. Are we all good? We're all good. We're all good.
Yeah, I
They're not
remember.
fluttering about. They're focused on, they're also taking care of themselves, because if they're not watching out, their whole pack is at a disadvantage.
Right.
But they have the greater good in their sights. And I thought that was such an impactful image.
And, it was, and I remember it vividly too. It was. It was.
Because here's a really funny thing about consent.
Mm-hmm.
It's very important. It can be very empowering, but it's also a way, and I mean this in a positive way, not with a negative connotation that it might sound like. It's a good way to CYA, cover your ass, save yourself future trouble in just asking. Poor
Literally,
concept.
like it's such a. It may sound like it's such an easy thing to do, but apparently, obviously not, because
Clearly not.
clearly not. And it is just so. I still cannot get over it. Just permission. That's it.
Your decision is not the only one that counts. Your need is not the only one that counts.
Exactly.
That doesn't mean that your need, your desire, your want is not important. It's not valid. That does not mean that. I feel like sometimes when you tell someone it's not about them, I
Yeah.
know sometimes I can get very reactive about hearing something like that. When you tell someone it's not about them, they automatically feel like you're invalidating their feeling or their need or the importance of what they're asking.
Right.
Not taking away any of that. It's just reminding you that it is not the sole important thing. And this is a future episode that we already have in the midst, about compromise, right? Because yes, consent can be a hard yes or a hard no, but there's conversation. That's where the maybe thing happens. If there's conversation, there can be compromise. But it's a
Right.
conversation. Both parties' need wants are being discussed and accounted for. Sometimes when we're coming from a reactive place versus a proactive or a responsive place, we don't leave room for conversation that could lead to a compromise or mutual consent, or even if it does mean this is the end of the road for it,
Right.
a sense of forgiveness. Like you just did with the Hamilton. You hate it. I didn't want to tell you because I hate it, and I hate it. I'm gonna hit you. I love it too. Okay, we just won't talk about it.
Right. Because
I wanted to mention that one thing, which in reality, I use the musical because I love it, but in reality, it's a universal concept about it being room for us all. I forgive you for not liking Hamilton. I can imagine why you have your issues.
and
I can imagine.
it's funny because I was talking to my best friend about it, and I was like, I'm not gonna tell Vanessa I love her. I hate her favorite play or one of her because you were on. I'm
There's
not
only
gonna
one. I
mention
do love
it.
Hamilton. My favorite musical is something else. It's Jekyll and
What
Hyde.
is it? Okay.
Jekyll and Hyde the
See,
musical.
but I mean, obviously, me telling you or me not telling you still didn't take away how we um feel about each other or our friendship. We all have our opinions, our feeling, whatever, and we
Yeah,
respect each other.
absolutely. And that too is consent. When you
Nah,
don't
we're
share,
kidding. I'm
what?
gonna just, I said, nah, we're kidding. I'm just gonna end the podcast with you because you love Hamilton. That's it.
It's
That's
over, Vanessa or Choobie. It's over. We can't do this anymore.
it.
Absolutely. And that's also, but that's also consent, right? And I think like now a lot of people, when it comes to politics, when it comes to religion, those are difficult conversations to have. And you can absolutely set the boundary that you don't want to have that conversation.
Right.
That's very viable. But if you do have it, to impose your own belief in such a harsh way that it no longer is a conversation but an argument, I don't think that's cute. And doing that, you know, and closing off that door, like if I were to tell you and we get into a tiff about you like Hamilton, I don't like Hamilton, not
It's not gonna help anybody. It's just a play. Well, at least to me, it's just a play. Like that does not define our friendship. Yeah, I
no.
don't like it. I don't like it. That's it.
That's
Now
it.
we,
I
like
mean,
you
there are
said,
topics that could lead to being a make or break it for someone in a particular partnership. But I feel, again, conversation, and you're taking away that person's ability to make their own choice and their own decision on how they feel about you. You're
right,
placing and not discussing your likes or dislikes or beliefs about something because of fear of the other person's reaction or wanting to protect them. You're taking away their ability to formulate an opinion about you and what you're basing your partnership with this person on falsities.
right.
And then is it really um, a healthy relationship?
I mean, sometimes there's certain things that I don't feel like it should have been bigger than it was. You know, we've been there before. We know that.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, I mean, it may not be important to you because you don't think it's not that big, but it is important and big to the other person.
Absolutely. Should be better preach. I don't think you said you're not doing a Choobie's book corner this week. You're doing something else.